I suppose you want to know how I ended up here, don't you? How a respectable woman like me, with a nice house in the suburbs and a husband everyone thought was perfect, became the talk of Riverside County. Well, pull up a chair because this is going to take a while. My name is Diana, and for 15 years I played the role of the perfect wife. I'm not going to lie and say those years were all bad. They weren't. Mark was charming when we met. Tall, confident, the kind of man who could sell ice to Eskimos. He worked in real estate, made good money, and promised me the world. And for a while, he delivered. We had the house with the white picket fence, the SUV in the driveway, 2 beautiful kids, Emma and Josh. Friday nights were date nights, Sunday mornings were pancakes and cartoons. From the outside, we looked like we'd stepped out of a catalog for suburban happiness. But you know what they say about things that look too good to be true. It started small. Little things I told myself didn't matter. Mark coming home later and later from showings, the way he'd angle his phone away from me when he texted, the new cologne that smelled nothing like the Old Spice he'd worn for a decade. I convinced myself I was being paranoid. Marriage is built on trust, right? That's what all the articles say. That's what my mother told me when I called her, voice shaking, asking if it was normal to feel like a stranger in your own life. All marriages go through rough patches, Diana, she'd said. You just need to try harder. Try harder, as if I wasn't already trying my hardest. I cooked his favorite meals. I lost the baby weight I'd been carrying. I bought lingerie that made me feel more ridiculous than sexy. And still, Mark drifted further away, like a boat I couldn't quite reach no matter how hard I swam. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were my spin class days, but I'd twisted my ankle that morning and had to cancel. Mark didn't know I was home. He'd said he had an evening showing, wouldn't be back until 9. I was in the kitchen, icing my ankle, when I heard his phone buzz on the counter. He'd left it there, something he never did. The man slept with that phone under his pillow. The screen lit up with a text preview. Can't wait for this weekend. Already packed the red dress you like. The sender's name was saved as Tom Client. My hands shook as I picked up the phone. I knew his passcode, his mother's birthday, because despite everything, Mark was predictable in some ways. The messages loaded and my entire world collapsed. Months of texts, photos, hotel reservations. Her name was Vanessa. She was 28, a paralegal at a firm downtown, and judging by the messages, she thought Mark was divorced. That he'd told her I was his crazy ex-wife who'd taken everything in the settlement. I sat there on the kitchen floor, my twisted ankle forgotten, scrolling through an entire relationship I'd known nothing about. They had inside jokes, pet names, plans for a future that didn't include me or my children. I should have cried. Any normal person would have cried. But I didn't. Instead, something cold and clear settled over me like a fog. I took screenshots of everything, forwarded them to myself, then deleted the evidence of my snooping. I put his phone back exactly where he'd left it, and I started planning. You might think I'm the kind of woman who'd throw his clothes on the lawn and change the locks, that I'd scream and cry and make a scene, but that's not revenge. That's just emotion. And emotion is what men like Mark count on. They count on you being so hurt, so destroyed, that you act rashly and give them ammunition for their narrative about the crazy wife. No, I was going to be smart about this. I spent the next 2 weeks playing the dutiful wife while conducting my investigation. I smiled when Mark kissed my cheek. I asked about his day. I even suggested we plan a vacation for our anniversary. That sounds great, babe, he'd said, barely looking up from his phone. Let's talk about it later. Meanwhile, I was building my case. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Rita, who came highly recommended and charged exactly as much as she should. Within a week, she had everything. Photos of Mark and Vanessa at restaurants I'd told him we couldn't afford, hotel check-ins using our joint credit card, even videos of them apartment hunting in the city. Apartment hunting. He was planning to leave us, just not quite yet. He wanted everything lined up first, all his ducks in a row, so he could make a clean break with minimal inconvenience to himself. But I also did something else during those 2 weeks. I went to see a lawyer. Jessica Torres was a shark in a pencil skirt. She'd handled my friend Nicole's divorce 2 years earlier, and Nicole had walked away with the house, full custody, and enough alimony to go back to school for her master's degree. "Tell me everything," Jessica said, pulling out a legal pad. I did. I showed her the screenshots, Rita's reports, our financial records. I told her about the joint accounts Mark controlled, the house that was only in his name because he'd bought it before we married, the investment properties I'd helped him acquire but never got put on the deeds for. "He's been very careful," I said. "Everything's structured so I'd walk away with almost nothing." Jessica looked at me over her glasses. "Diana, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Do you want to fight for this marriage, or do you want to win the war?" I didn't hesitate. "I want to win," she smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Then here's what we're going to do." Over the next month, I became an actress worthy of an Oscar. I was sweet. I was loving. I initiated intimacy that Mark seemed almost confused by but didn't question. I told him I wanted to be more involved in his business, that I wanted to understand what he did. "I've been thinking," I said one night over dinner, "we should update our estate planning. With the kids getting older, we should make sure everything's in order." Mark agreed readily. Why wouldn't he? He probably thought it would make things cleaner when he eventually left. But what Mark didn't know was that Jessica had me documenting everything. Every late night, every expense, every time he said he was one place and was actually with Vanessa. I kept a journal, dated and detailed. I recorded phone conversations. California is a 2-party consent state, but there are ways around that when you're documenting abuse and financial infidelity. I also did something else, something Mark never saw coming. I got a job. For 15 years, I'd been a stay-at-home mom, because Mark said it made more sense. His income was higher and someone needed to be there for the kids. I'd agreed, set aside my own career in graphic design, and made his life my full-time occupation. But I still had my skills. I still had my portfolio from before Emma was born. And as it turned out, remote design work was booming. I started small. Freelance projects, logos for startups, website designs. I used a separate bank account Mark didn't know about, one I'd opened years ago and never closed. Within 2 months, I was making decent money. Within 4, I'd landed a part-time contract with a tech company that paid better than I'd ever expected. I was building my own life raft while Mark drilled holes in our ship, completely oblivious. Month 5. I had everything I needed. Rita had enough evidence to wallpaper our bedroom. Jessica had our strategy locked down. My own income was steady. The kids were settled in school, with friends and routines that would provide stability no matter what came next. It was time. I chose a Saturday morning. The kids were at my mother's for the weekend. I'd told Mark we needed alone time to reconnect. He'd seemed pleased, probably thinking it meant I'd finally stopped asking so many questions. We were in the kitchen. He was making coffee, humming something under his breath, checking his phone with that little smile he got when Vanessa texted. "Mark," I said, "we need to talk." He glanced up, unconcerned. "Sure, babe. What's up?" I slid the folder across the kitchen island, the thick one, the one with tabs and highlighted sections and Rita's meticulous documentation. "I know about Vanessa." The color drained from his face. The phone nearly slipped from his hand. "Diana, Don't." My voice was calm, steady. I'd practiced this. "Don't insult me by lying. I know everything. The hotels, the apartment hunting, the fact that you told her we were divorced. I know you've been siphoning money from our joint account into a separate one I'm not supposed to know about. I know you've been planning this for almost a year." He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "It's not what you think." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Mark, I have hundreds of text messages. I have photos. I have bank statements. I have a private investigator's report that reads like a bad romance novel. It's exactly what I think." "Diana, please." "I can explain." "I don't want your explanation. I want you to listen very carefully to what happens next." I pulled out the second folder, the one from Jessica. You're going to sign these divorce papers. You're going to agree to joint custody with me as the primary parent. You're going to sell 2 of your investment properties, the ones I helped you buy, the ones I decorated and staged and found tenants for, and you're going to give me 60% of the proceeds. That's insane. Those properties are mine. They're marital assets, and California is a community property state. Jessica assures me I could get half of everything, including the equity in this house that I've been maintaining and improving for 15 years. But I'm being generous. I'm only asking for what's fair. I'll fight you on this. Please do. I leaned forward. Because if you fight me, I'll file these papers publicly. I'll attach every text message, every photo, every hotel receipt. Your clients, the ones who trust you with their biggest investments, they'll see exactly what kind of man you are. Vanessa will see that you've been lying to her about being divorced. And her firm, the one with the strict morality clause in their employment contracts, they'll get an anonymous tip about their paralegal's relationship with a married client. Mark's jaw clenched. You wouldn't. Try me. The silence stretched between us like a wire pulled taut. There's more, I continued. You're going to take responsibility for this. You're going to tell Emma and Josh in age-appropriate language that the divorce is happening because you made choices that hurt our family. You're not going to make me the villain. You're not going to tell them it was complicated or that sometimes people grow apart. You're going to own this. You're being vindictive. No, Mark, I'm being fair. Vindictive would be posting these screenshots on every neighborhood Facebook group. Vindictive would be showing up at Vanessa's office. Vindictive would be telling your mother exactly what her golden boy has been up to. I paused. I'm giving you a choice. Sign the papers, agree to the terms, and we can do this quietly. Or we can do this publicly, and I promise you, you'll lose more than money. He signed. Of course he signed. Men like Mark are brave when they think they're getting away with something, but the moment they face real consequences, they fold. The divorce took 6 months to finalize. True to his word, or rather, true to his fear, Mark agreed to everything. I got the kids 3 weekdays and every other weekend. I got my share of the property sales. I got spousal support for 5 years, enough to supplement my growing design income. The house went on the market. I didn't want it anymore. Too many memories of the life I thought I had. Instead, I found a smaller place, a charming craftsman with a studio space where I could work. The kids adjusted better than I expected. Kids are resilient that way, especially when they're not caught in the crossfire of their parents' war. Mark moved in with Vanessa. Last I heard, she was pregnant. I felt sorry for her for about 10 seconds, then remembered she'd been sleeping with a married man for over a year. Some lessons you have to learn the hard way. But here's the thing nobody tells you about revenge. Sometimes the best revenge isn't the one you plan. It's the one that happens naturally when you step back and let karma do its work. 6 months after the divorce was final, I ran into Mark at Emma's school play. He looked tired. The kind of tired that comes from sleepless nights with a newborn, from a girlfriend who'd realized the man she thought was divorced actually just divorced, from the reality that running from your problems doesn't solve them. Diana, he said, catching my arm as I headed to my seat. Can we talk? We communicate through the parenting app, Mark. You know that. I know, I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man I'd spent 15 years of my life with, who I'd loved, who I'd built a home with, who'd thrown it all away for someone younger and more exciting. And I felt nothing. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Not even pity. Just nothing. Okay, I said. Okay? Okay, you're sorry. I heard you. I pulled my arm free gently. But Mark, I need you to understand something. I don't forgive you. I don't need to. Forgiveness is something you give to people when they've hurt you, but you want them in your life. You're not in my life anymore. You're just the father of my children, and that's all you'll ever be. His face crumpled. Diana, I'm happy now. Really happy. I have a career I love. I have friends who actually care about me. I have time to paint again, to read, to do yoga, to be someone other than your wife. You gave me a gift when you left, even if you didn't mean to. You freed me. I made a mistake. You made a choice, and now you get to live with it." I smiled, and it was genuine. "I hope things work out with Vanessa. I hope you're a better father to your new baby than you were a husband to me, and I hope you find whatever it is you were looking for when you threw our life away." As I walked away, into the auditorium where my kids were waiting, I realized something profound. Revenge isn't about making someone else suffer, it's about refusing to suffer yourself. I didn't win because Mark lost his money or his reputation or his comfortable life. I won because I found myself again. The Diana who'd existed before marriage and motherhood had consumed her identity. The Diana who was creative and capable and deserving of respect. That's the revenge story nobody tells you about. The one where you don't destroy your enemy, you just build yourself back better than before. Moving forward. These days, my life looks different than I ever imagined it would. Emma's 13 now, Josh is 10. They spend equal time with both parents, and while it's not the intact family I'd envisioned, it's honest. They know what happened in age-appropriate terms. They know their father made choices that ended the marriage. They also know that both their parents love them, even if we can't love each other anymore. My design business has taken off. Last month I hired 2 contractors to help with overflow work. I'm not rich, but I'm stable. More importantly, I'm proud of what I've built. I even started dating again. Nothing serious yet. I'm taking my time, learning what I actually want instead of settling for what wants me. But I had coffee with someone last week, a divorce attorney named David, who made me laugh and didn't once check his phone during our conversation. Small things matter when you've spent years having them denied. The final truth. So yes, I got my revenge on Mark, but not the way you might think. Not through destruction or humiliation or dragging him through the mud, though God knows I could have. I got my revenge by living well, by refusing to let his betrayal define me, by showing my children, especially my daughter, that you don't have to accept being treated as less than you deserve, that you can be hurt and angry and devastated and still come out the other side whole. Sometimes late at night, when the house is quiet and the kids are asleep, I think about the Diana I was 5 years ago, the one who found those text messages and felt her world ending. I wish I could tell her that it wasn't ending, it was just beginning, that the pain she felt would transform into something stronger, something better. That revenge isn't a dish best served cold. It's a life best lived warm, full, and free. Mark took 15 years from me, but I took back the rest of my life. And that's the best revenge of all.